I was 18 years old when this happened, back in 1992. I'd just graduated high school and was living with my parents in a small town in Ohio. You know the type. One main street, everybody knows everybody, and the McDonald's was pretty much the only place hiring teenagers. I remember being so excited when I got the call that I'd gotten the job. Minimum wage was $4.25 an hour back then, but to me it felt like winning the lottery. I'd finally be able to save up for a car, maybe even move out on my own eventually. Looking back now, I wish I'd never set foot in that place. My first shift was scheduled for a Monday morning, August 3rd, at 8 a.m. sharp. I couldn't sleep the night before, partially from excitement, partially from those first job nerves. I got there at 7:45, wearing my brand new uniform that my mom had ironed 3 times to make sure it was perfect. The manager, a guy named Frank, who couldn't have been older than 30, was already there, waiting for me. He had this thin mustache and wore thick glasses that made his eyes look huge. I'll never forget the way he smiled when he saw me. It seemed genuine at the time, but thinking about it now gives me chills. "Early on your first day," he said, shaking my hand. His palm was weirdly cold and clammy. That's what I like to see. Come on, let me show you around. The restaurant was smaller than modern McDonald's, maybe 8 tables in the dining area with those old orange and brown plastic seats that were popular in the 70s and 80s. The kitchen was cramped but clean, with 3 other employees already prepping for the breakfast rush. Everything seemed completely normal until he got to the back of the kitchen. There, next to the walk-in freezer, was a heavy metal door with a deadbolt lock. A narrow staircase led down into darkness. Frank's whole demeanor changed when we stopped in front of it. His smile disappeared and he lowered his voice like he was sharing some corporate secret. "This leads to the basement," he said, his huge eyes fixed on mine. "You are never, under any circumstances, to go down there, understand?" I nodded, but I must have looked confused because he continued. "Only one employee is authorized for basement access, Ricky Martinez. He works the night shift, handles all the basement inventory. Been with us for years. If you hear any noises from down there during your shift, you ignore them. Even if it sounds like someone needs help, you come get me or call me. You do not go down there yourself." "What kind of noises?" I asked, trying to keep my voice casual. Frank's eye twitched slightly. "The ice machine is down there. Sometimes it makes sounds. Banging, mostly. Sometimes it sounds like voices, but it's just the pipes. Old building, you know?" I knew he was lying. You can tell when someone's making excuses on the spot. They give too many details, contradict themselves. But I needed this job, so I just nodded again. The rest of the orientation was normal. I was partnered with Christy, a woman in her late 20s who'd been there 2 years. She showed me how to work the fryer, the proper way to salt the fries, how to clean the shake machine. Normal stuff. But I noticed she kept glancing at that basement door, especially when we had to walk past it. Around 2 p.m., during a lull between lunch and dinner, I finally asked her about it. "What's really in the basement?" She was wiping down the prep station and her hand stopped mid-motion. "I don't know," she said quietly, glancing around to make sure Frank wasn't nearby. "And I don't want to know. Just follow the rule, okay? For your own good." That first week passed without incident. I learned the routines, got faster at making burgers, even started recognizing the regulars. But I couldn't stop thinking about that basement. Every time I walked past that door, I felt this weird pull, like when you're standing at the edge of a cliff and some dark part of your brain whispers, "Jump." It was the following Monday, August 10th, when things started getting strange. I was working the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift, and around 9:30 I heard it for the first time. A rhythmic banging from below, like someone hitting a pipe with a wrench. Bang, bang, bang. 3 hits, pause, 3 hits, pause. Oh. Christy was working with me, and I saw her whole body tense up. She grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Ignore it," she whispered, "just ignore it." But then we heard something else, a voice, muffled but definitely human, calling out. I couldn't make out the words, but it sounded desperate, pleading. "Someone's hurt down there," I said, starting toward the door. Christy yanked me back with surprising strength. "No, remember what Frank said. It's just the pipes. Pipes don't scream, Christy." Her face was pale, and I noticed her hands were shaking. "Please, just trust me on this, please." The desperation in her voice stopped me. We finished our shift in tense silence, the banging continuing intermittently. A few times I could swear I heard that voice again, but Christy would always turn up the radio or start running the blender to drown it out. I should have quit right then. Any sane person would have, but I was 18 and stupid, and my curiosity was stronger than my sense of self-preservation. The next night, Tuesday, August 11th, Frank called me around 7 p.m. at home. He sounded panicked. "Have you seen Ricky? He didn't show up for his shift last night and he's not answering his phone." "No, I haven't met him yet," I said. There was a long pause. Then, his voice strangely flat. "If you do see him, tell him to call me immediately." Wednesday's shift started normally. I was working with a guy named Marcus who usually worked mornings. Around 8 p.m., we were pretty dead. Just 2 customers in the dining room, both regulars reading newspapers over coffee. That's when I heard the crash. It came from the basement, loud enough to make Marcus drop the box of frozen patties he was carrying. We both froze, staring at each other. Then came a sound that made my blood run cold. A long, agonized scream that seemed to go on forever before cutting off abruptly. "We need to call 911, I said. Marcus shook his head violently. "No cops. Frank's rules." "Someone could be dying down there." "Someone's always dying down there," he muttered, then seemed to realize what he'd said. His face went white. I didn't. Just forget I said that." I couldn't forget it. Those words kept echoing in my head for the rest of my shift. Someone's always dying down there. It was 10:47 p.m. when everything went to hell. I was taking out the trash to the dumpster behind the building. The back door closed behind me, and in the sudden quiet of the night I heard it. A scratching sound from the ground level window of the basement. I crept closer, my heart hammering. The window was mostly painted over, but there was a small clear spot in one corner. I knelt down and peered through. At first I couldn't process what I was seeing. The basement was dimly lit by a single flickering fluorescent bulb. I could make out several large chest freezers, the industrial kind. One of them was open. Then I saw the hand. It was hanging out of the open freezer, pale and stiff. I was about to run when something moved in the shadows. A figure stood up from behind one of the freezers, and my blood turned to ice. It was wearing a McDonald's uniform, but that was where any normalcy ended. Its head was wrong, twisted around backwards so the face pointed behind while the body faced forward. When it walked, it moved in this horrible, jerky way like a marionette being controlled by a drunk puppeteer. I must have made a sound because suddenly that backward head snapped in my direction. Even through the painted window I could see its eyes, black, empty holes that seemed to pull in the light around them. I ran. Sprinted back into the restaurant, my hands shaking so badly I could barely open the door. Marcus took one look at my face and knew something was terribly wrong. "We're leaving," I gasped. "Now." But when we turned toward the front door, Frank was standing there. I don't know how he got there so fast. His car wasn't in the parking lot when I'd gone outside. He was smiling that thin smile, but his eyes behind those thick glasses were cold and flat. "Going somewhere, boys?" I just remembered I have to. My mom needs me to," I stammered. "You saw something you shouldn't have." It wasn't a question. Frank walked toward us slowly, reaching into his pocket. "That's very unfortunate. Ricky was getting too curious too. We had to make an example of him." I grabbed a pot of hot oil from the fryer and threw it at him. Frank screamed and stumbled back, clawing at his face. Marcus and I bolted for the back door, but as we passed the basement entrance, I saw it was wide open. That thing, that backward-headed nightmare, was climbing the stairs. "Come back," it called in a voice like grinding metal. "We're not finished with you yet." We made it to Marcus's car and peeled out of there like the devil was chasing us, because maybe he was. Marcus dropped me at my house and we agreed to never speak of what happened. I noticed his hands were shaking as bad as mine on the steering wheel. I never went back. Didn't even call to officially quit. 2 days later, my mom said Frank had called the house asking for me, but I told her to say I'd moved out of state. Which wasn't a lie. By the end of that week, I'd packed everything I owned and caught a Greyhound bus to California. I tried to forget about it. Tried to convince myself I'd imagined things, that maybe there'd been a gas leak causing hallucinations. But then, about 3 months later, I saw a small article in the newspaper. The McDonald's had closed suddenly. Renovations, the article said. But a friend from high school told me they found things in the basement. Things the health department couldn't explain. The building was condemned and eventually demolished. I'm in my 40s now. I've never eaten at McDonald's again. Can't even drive past one without feeling sick. Sometimes late at night, I still dream about that basement, about Ricky in the freezer, about that thing with the backward head climbing those stairs. But the worst part, the part that keeps me up at night even now, when I did some research years later, I found out there had been other incidents. Other McDonald's locations with basement access restricted to one-night employee, other sudden closures, other missing workers. Frank was right about one thing. I saw something I shouldn't have, and sometimes I wonder if they're still looking for me. If one night I'll hear that metal grinding voice outside my window. We're not finished with you yet. I changed my name when I moved to California, legally, completely. But sometimes when the phone rings late at night and is just breathing on the other end, I wonder if they finally found me. If you work fast food and they tell you not to go somewhere, listen. Some rules are meant to be broken. Some doors should stay closed. And some secrets are worth taking to your grave.